Good morning to you and your family. It is Wednesday, September 28th, 2016. I'm Ainsley Earhart. Donald Trump taking the campaign trail by storm, fresh off this week's debate.
And we're going to get rid of cricket. Yeah, we're going to get rid of that crooked woman. She's a crooked woman. She's a very, very dishonest woman.
And news this morning of a major endorsement that nobody saw coming.
He's calling her crooked again. Meanwhile, Capitol Hill hearings reveal the identity of yet another Clinton confidential assistant whose sole job apparently was to find used BlackBerries on eBay and put them into Hillary Clinton's hands. We're going to tell you the name of that confidential assistant coming up.
All right, you went to bed a Virgo and you woke up a Leo. Raise your hand if that happened to you. Uproar this morning after NASA changes the astrological signs. Therefore, I really don't know who I am anymore. Can they even do that? Do they have that type of mystical power?
They do.
We're going to examine those big questions and so much more because your mornings are better because you chose Friends.
This is such a big story. As it turns out, there are not 12 astrological signs. There are 13. I went to bed last night a Libra, and now I'm a Virgo.
Oh, right. You're in my category.
Yeah.
Virgos are awesome.
Right.
Well, are you still a Virgo?
I'm still a Virgo.
A lot of people
change.
change.
I consider myself still full of both. I'm still a Taurus, but technically, I'm now blurred, and I'm an Aries.
What is that?
Right? It's all blurred. Everything's blurred.
Like last night, you went to bed. You're a bull, so you have like a feisty personality. Now you're an Aries. You woke up calm.
Is that true?
I have no idea what Aries means.
I have no idea.
That means your personality changed.
You know, this also means the debate's over. We're open for different topics, at least for now.
Let's go out to John Roberts. He's following Donald Trump after the most watched debate in history. John, what's your birthday?
My birthday is November the 15th. I am a Scorpio.
No,
and anybody who knows me will say that is absolutely apropos.
Now you are a Libra. You're a Libra. You're no longer a Scorpio. Sorry.
Huh? Right.
I'm not.
Hey,
I'm not
John,
a Libra. I'm not the
say
scales.
this.
I do not weigh both sides.
John, you know, when I was pregnant with my daughter, the people said she's going to be born a Scorpio. You know, they're fiery personalities. Now she's not a Scorpio anymore.
Well, I mean, that would be wholly disappointing to me if I've lived all my life with a Scorpio personality.
Exactly.
And suddenly I'm not.
Exactly.
Hey, you mentioned a second ago, Steve, that Trump is back to calling Hillary Clinton crooked Hillary. He never stopped because you clearly don't get the crooked Hillary question of the day from the Trump kids campaign.
But apparently you do.
He never stopped.
Update us on Trump.
Yeah. All right. Update us on Trump. Okay, this is something a lot of people didn't see coming. Big endorsement for Donald Trump. 50 Bush area alums came out late yesterday and said they were throwing their full support behind Donald Trump. Who are some of these people? Former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, Ari Fleischer, who is the spokesman for the White House, John Ashcroft, the former Attorney General, Elaine Chao, who was Transportation and Labor in the Bush administration, Tommy Thompson, the former governor of Wisconsin, who was also Ag Secretary, and many, many more. Donald Trump back on the campaign trail yesterday after kind of lashing out in all directions yesterday morning post-debate, solidly back on message at a huge event in Melbourne, Florida. Thousands of people inside, thousands of people outside who could not get into the event, hitting Hillary Clinton very hard on her record, particularly as Secretary of State, saying that she was, quote, virtually incompetent. Listen to this.
She bragged about how she traveled all over the world. And that's true. She traveled all over the world. And you know what it got us? Nothing. Nothing. It got us debt, and it's got us death. We have death and debt and unemployment. We have all bad things.
Democrats are confident that Hillary Clinton is going to get a boost after the debate, which saw Donald Trump into difficulty in a number of different occasions. But Trump yesterday in Melbourne, Florida, boldly predicting that he will roll to victory on November the 8th. Listen to this.
We're going to do something that's never been done before. Never. And we're going to get rid of cricket. I mean, we're going to get rid of that crooked woman. She's a crooked woman. She's a very, very dishonest woman.
Donald Trump and the campaign also trying to change the narrative away from the debate yesterday, announcing that in a 24-hour period following the debate, they raised a whopping $18 million off of online and direct mail donations. So they don't seem to have any problem bringing in the cash. No question about that. Ainsley, Steve,
yeah,
Brian?
the only thing is, John, you wonder why they started so late. They're setting all these records in small donations, which shows there's so much passion. Can you imagine if they started earlier?
Well,
there is word, too, that he might put up to $140 million of his own money for the final 40-plus days. Is that true?
He's not far away from that. You know, he's already in for, I think, 70-plus. So doubling that probably wouldn't be too difficult between now and November. You know, don't forget, though, the problem with the fundraising, Brian, was he was self-funding all the way along through until June. But ever since then, with this joint fundraising agreement with the RNC, they've been raising tons of money.
Indeed. All right, John, thank you very much. So they're raising tons of money, and they had huge ratings for the Monday night debate. As it turns out, with over 80 million people watching, as it turns out, Monday Night Football, opposite, the lowest rated Monday Night Football game in history.
I would not doubt that some of this sitting during the national anthem and some of the antics that are taking place are turning a lot of people off, too. Just quick thing, on those two rallies that we saw, what a difference in crowds. 1,400 for a very, and they were loud for Hillary Clinton, which is not bad. Donald Trump had 15,000, and he said 12,000 were outside.
Turned away by the fire.
In Melbourne, Florida.
Florida.
What a difference.
Wow. He had a national call day where the biggest donors, some of his biggest donors, like Woody Johnson, who owns the Mets, Joel's team, the Jets, Joel's team. He was one of the callers, and he got 100 of his top donors to call individuals. He got Ivanka to call, Mike Pence called, Eric and Don called, and they were asking people for money, and they raised a lot that way.
They did. That's how they all do it. Meanwhile, this is how the mainstream media does it. Generally, they are in the tank for the person on the political left, and after the debate on Monday night, on Tuesday, turns out everybody was clear on the liberal press. Hillary was the big winner.
Trump upset about his mic, upset about some of the questions. Will he do the next two debates? And Hillary Clinton today clearly relieved.
Today in North Carolina, a victory lap for Hillary Clinton.
Like a player going back to watch game films, Clinton was eager to relive the debate. Top Democrats did a victory lap, even as Trump warned he'll be tougher in round two.
Trump gave Hillary Clinton's campaign a huge gift by acting like a misogynistic bully last night.
Well, so there you go. That is the one-horse way in which people are reporting it. Look, she had a good night. I don't think Donald Trump had his best night. If you look at the factor that he hasn't had a one-on-one debate to 86 million people watching, and he had no idea what to expect, you could factor that in. Maybe the moderator's a little tougher on him, but he saw so many opportunities right down Main Street where he did not swing at the pitch.
I got a feeling.
But the only thing that should worry Trump supporters is I think his message is he's going to get tougher. I don't think getting tougher is the answer. I think getting more specific about her weaknesses.
Well, maybe that's what he means, like tougher. When she talks about releasing his tax returns, maybe he's going to come back with something like, all right, talk about pay to play. Let's talk about what you did with the Clinton Foundation, that kind of thing. That's getting tougher, and those are still facts.
Right. But just saying I'm going to get tougher, talking about all the problems Bill Clinton had, showing some discipline in the White House, is not the answer.
Well, but here's a perfect example of how he could take the gloves off, and that is the number one issue that resonates with Trump people is Hillary Clinton's email, that bootleg situation she had down in her basement in Chappaqua. He had a soundbite about the email, but it wasn't as, it wasn't as definitive as a lot of people would like to see. Later on today, the House is going to hold former State Department IT specialist, her IT guy, Brian Pagliano, in contempt of Congress because he did not show up. That's his picture right there. They're steamed at him. You can't do that. He was supposed to sit behind that microphone. Anyway, here is Clinton and Trump on Monday night talking about the email.
I do. I made a mistake using a private email.
That was more than a mistake. That was done purposely, okay? That was not a mistake. That was done purposely. When you have your staff taking the Fifth Amendment, taking the Fifth so they're not prosecuted, when you have the man that set up the illegal server taking the Fifth, I think it's disgraceful. And believe me, this country thinks it's disgraceful. It really thinks it's disgraceful also.
You have to wonder if we've actually found out everything. The answer is no. And today's James Comey will be in front of the Oversight Committee to answer additional questions on the document dump that took place Friday in the wake of all the news coming, and everyone focused on the debate on Sunday. More revelations about other Clinton staffers and what they did to destroy and buy BlackBerries and what have you.
Now, can you hold someone in contempt of Congress, though? I mean, I know they're lawmakers, but they're not law enforcers. The FBI already gave this guy immunity.
They got to show up.
Yeah, but the FBI, the law enforcement, gave him immunity, meaning he's not in trouble. So if Congress says you have to come in front of us and talk, can they enforce that?
Absolutely.
He doesn't
have to say anything. He can take the fifth. That's why they do that. Brian was mentioning the person who went out and bought the BlackBerries and stuff like that. We now know from the document dump the identity. There she is in the circle right there, 35-year-old Monica Hanley. She managed Hillary's mobile devices. She was interviewed by the FBI a couple of times, and as it turns out, when because Hillary didn't cotton to the new technology, she liked the old stuff. This woman, Monica Hanley, would go on eBay or to a kiosk at a mall in Virginia to buy used BlackBerries for Hillary Clinton. So America's biggest secrets were on used equipment from eBay.
You know how she started? She was an intern. She was an intern named Monica, working for Senator Hillary Clinton. Are you kidding me?
Well, wait a minute. How many BlackBerries were there? I thought there was only one.
Wait a minute. How many Clinton interns named Monica are there? Just curious.
Hey,
can't make it up, folks.
What would Abby be doing here at this hour?
Well, she's doing the news.
I certainly don't have the answer to that question. I don't know how many interns are named Monica.
Right.
Sorry.
From the Clinton
That'll be our trivia question
of the day. Requirement.
Apparently. We do, though, start with a Fox News alert. One of Israel's greatest leaders has died. Former President and Prime Minister Shimon Peres passing away after suffering a major stroke 2 weeks ago. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for a peace agreement between Israelis and Palestinians. President George W. Bush releasing a statement reading in part, "For the rest of his life, he led it with a deep and abiding concern for his people and a commitment to freedom and peace." The Bush family will miss Shimon Peres and his grace, dignity, and optimism. President Obama, the Clintons, and Pope Francis will attend his funeral on Friday. Shimon Peres was 93 years old. Also breaking overnight, a deadly officer-involved shooting sparking protests near San Diego. A witness capturing the moment. 30-year-old Alfredo Olano got into a shooting stance and aimed at officers after pulling something from his pocket. Police now say it was not a weapon. Well, you can hear the tense moments in this newly released police sound.
Still non-compliant, still won't get his hand out of his pocket. Get your hand out of your pocket. 228 shots fired. Send me an ambulance.
The man's sister calling 911 for help, describing her brother as mentally ill. The officers are now on leave. And growing concerns this morning about hackers hitting the election. The Department of Homeland Security says 18 states have accepted its offer to help improve their cybersecurity systems, and this after Russia is suspected of hacking into election databases in both Illinois and Arizona over the summer. And those are some of your headlines this morning. I'll be back with you guys shortly.
All right, Abby, thank you very much. All right, if you want to win the White House, you pretty much have to win the state of Ohio, but Hillary Clinton hasn't been there in weeks. Is she giving up on it? Is that part of her strategy? Former Ohio congressman and presidential candidate Dennis Kucinich gives us his take next.
And pop star Katy Perry is getting naked for Hillary, and she's not alone. I don't believe this is live.
41 days to the election. Meanwhile, it is our nation's top bellwether state. We're talking about Ohio, correctly backing each White House winner, aside from two, since 1900. But tell that to Hillary Clinton, who has not visited since Labor Day. Is the Democratic nominee abandoning Ohio, and why might that be? Here to weigh in is former Democratic Ohio congressman and 2008 presidential candidate Dennis Kucinich. Dennis, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve. Good to be with you.
You know, you look at the latest Real Clear Politics average poll of Ohio, and Donald Trump is up by a couple. Why does it look like she's getting out of the state?
Well, I don't think she is abandoning the state, but Ohio poses a difficulty for the Clinton campaign, principally because of Bill Clinton's trade policies. Ohio lost over 300,000 manufacturing jobs, a net loss from 1994 to 2015. Those jobs are not coming back.
Right.
They represent not only a shift of manufacturing jobs, but all those jobs that supported them. So that's a huge issue in Ohio, and Trump has exploited it.
Sure, and we heard at the debate the other night where she was talking about trade, and now she sounds a lot like Donald Trump, and even though she was for something, now she's against it. Not her finest hour. There's something else going on in Ohio, and you look across the country, all you got to do is count the number of people in the room when one of these candidates show up. Hillary was at an event yesterday. There were a little north of 1,000 people. Then you go down to Melbourne, Florida, and there you've got over 10,000 people, I believe, waiting to see Donald Trump. There's an enthusiasm gap for Hillary in Ohio, isn't there?
There is, and I think at this point the Clinton campaign is hoping to drive the negatives of Donald Trump high enough so that people will just be so disgusted with the Trump campaign that they won't vote for Trump, and maybe, and that's a maybe, they'll vote for Hillary Clinton. I don't think that a negative campaign is a good thing for the country. I don't think it's a good thing for the Clinton campaign. In order to win, she has to inspire people to vote for her. There is difficulty doing that in Ohio, which is one of the reasons why Trump at this point has the edge in the polls.
And the problem with going negative is if people are not excited about you and all you're doing is talking about how bad the other guy's going to be, you're not presenting your vision for America.
Yeah, and that's a pity, because what happens is that you've got, in Hillary Clinton, you have someone who has tremendous government experience. You know, we can debate whether that's good or bad, but she does have that. And she needs to put that forward in the best way possible, in a positive way. And failing to do that, she'll have great difficulty in Ohio.
Well, she's down by 2 right now. Let's see if she returns anytime soon. Congressman, thank you very much for getting up early for us on this Wednesday.
Lovely day. Thank you. Good to be with you.
All right. Thank you. Dennis Kucinich. All right. 20 after the top of the hour. Donald Trump tackling crime in Monday's debate. Remember this?
Secretary Clinton doesn't want to use a couple of words, and that's law and order. And we need law and order.
New numbers just released by the FBI prove he's right. David Webb here with reaction next. Morning, Dave.
Time now for some quick headlines. Would you want to ride to Mars in this? Okay, I have no desire to go to Mars anyway, but definitely not in that. SpaceX is unveiling plans to bring people to Mars despite that fiery failure from several weeks ago. The trip would take 80 days. They hope to start shuttling people within the next 10 years.
Take your time. Let them work the bugs out.
Yes.
A major medical breakthrough. Listen to this. It's causing a lot of controversy. That baby right there, born in Mexico 5 months ago, to not 2, but to 3 parents. In addition to his parents' DNA, the baby boy was injected with a 3rd donor's DNA before birth to replace a potentially fatal gene that was inherited from his biological mother.
That is something. Meanwhile, Donald Trump taking on crime during Monday night's debate. Remember this?
Secretary Clinton doesn't want to use a couple of words, and that's law and order. And we need law and order. If we don't have it, we're not going to have a country.
And he went on to talk more about crime, and the data seems to back him up. Now, FBI numbers show an uptick in violent crime across the U.S. This is where they were actually sparring on this. She says it was down. He says it's up. This includes a nearly 11% increase in murders last year alone.
Here with his reaction is Fox News contributor and radio talk show host David Webb. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Was Trump right about this, about law and order?
He's not only right about law and order, he's right about and needs to expand into the secondary and tertiary effects of crime on the community. The numbers and the trend lines are there in the way crime is changing in this country. There are other issues in New York. They've had issues with reclassification, with precinct-level reclassification of crimes that leads to ComStat reports that make it look better. But the secondary and tertiary effects, we talk about the big crimes and the criminal, are the victims, whether it's it's a financial cost, whether it's a medical cost, which can also include financial, or even the costs to the community, it affects the safety and security of the community. It also affects the jobs. Companies stay, businesses stay where they can operate. So there are many effects of crime, but the numbers alone are there. In New York alone, we're well over, I think we're 20 or 22 murders over 2015 reports right now. Now, that's not as tragic as it is in Chicago, but we see the trend lines going. And the thing that's often ignored, the small crimes. Small crimes are lagging indicators, typically, of a larger growth from misdemeanors to minor and major felonies.
I'm glad you mentioned the jobs, because that is important for a variety of reasons. But I think the whole thing about crime and lawlessness that started the conversation was about stop and frisk.
Right.
And he was making the case that in New York, when Rudy Giuliani was doing it, crime went down, which is absolutely true.
Yeah, the numbers are there. We went from about 2,200 murders down to about 500. The other part of that is stop, question, and frisk actually benefits the poorer communities. The communities that benefit because the policing occurs in those communities, they benefit. A grandmother can now walk down the street. No, it's not. Criminal profiling, we've talked about this before, is different from racial profiling. Criminal profiling, perfectly lawful, upheld in 1968, Terry versus Cook. Stop and frisk is constitutional, the law of the land. Lester Holt was completely wrong in how he classified what happened with Judge Scheindlin, who declared the practice unconstitutional, but not the law. And by the way, that was then fought, and the case wasn't taken up again.
And she's a cop-resenting judge, and everyone knows it. Meanwhile, the crime numbers are pretty staggering, too. They're up at about 10.8% in just a year, from 14,164 to 15,696. The other thing that came out is that she also is saying that we have an implicit bias as Americans, and that we're going to retrain law enforcement. Really?
Well, okay, let's take this farce called implicit bias and white privilege. That's exactly what it is. It's kind of saying I go to sleep and suddenly I wake up and I have an implicit bias I didn't know I had before.
No, you came out of the womb that way.
Yeah,
that's what you say.
And you can acquire it at any time. This thing is like allergies. Apparently it can happen at any time. Difference is allergies, you know you have an issue. Implicit bias is simply a political issue. It's a wedge that they use. It's this safe space crowd. It's this whole, we need to pad the world for everyone.
Is this just to get out the vote?
Yes. The answer is yes.
David, there was another shooting. We woke up this morning, another shooting in California. What do the candidates need to do now?
Well, law enforcement, where the guy, an African-American guy, held up his hand like this, and he got shot. They didn't know what was in his hand, but that usually is trouble for law enforcement.
Right, and look, again, I always say this, we don't know all the facts. I've looked at some of the images of this, and it looks like that. You don't know what's in the officer's mind at that time, and apparently, according to early reports, he had mental issues. Look, there are a lot of things that need to be dealt with, but it's not going to be dealt with by attacking every case and turning it on the police. Because in the end, if you break down the relationship between the community and law enforcement, you break down the society. And the left does not want to admit that it's important to have a law and order society. Hillary Clinton is making a base play. She's going after the black vote, which is a problem for her. They're not coming out in droves. The enthusiasm is down. And frankly, again, I say this so many times to people, who do you call? Who do you dial 911 and get? It's like the Black Lives Matter leader in Houston, graduate student. When he got robbed, he called 911. The cops showed up, and now he's calling for more police officers. Well, he's a hypocrite, isn't he?
All right. Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Good points. All right, coming up, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton clash over terror and national security. But which candidate made you feel the safest? We're going to have a panel of mothers. Ladies, stay tuned. You're coming up next.
I bet you're talking about kids. And you went to bed a Virgo. You woke up a Leo. Uproar this morning after NASA changes the astrological signs. Can they even do that?
Yes.
Do you feel different?
Oh, man. 41 more days, and guess who's coming to dinner? Bernie Sanders is hitting the trail with Hillary Clinton today as the Democratic nominee fights tooth and nail for the support of the Sanders faithful. She wants the young people, his fans, voting for her.
Yes, and Fox News senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel is live in Westchester, New York. Mike, you have the very latest. Sorry I'm yelling, but the mom panel is very loud today.
Sure, absolutely.
A spirited bunch. Good morning, Steve and Brian. Yeah, that's right. Hillary Clinton returning to the campaign trail today. She will team up with her former rival, and this is all about trying to energize the youth vote. Clinton and Bernie Sanders will do a rally later today at the University of New Hampshire. You can expect them to talk about college affordability, which was a central issue of his presidential campaign. Sanders had massive youth support, but the young voter has been cool to Clinton so far. Clinton is also picking up surprising endorsements today from former Virginia Republican Senator John Warner. Warner's a former chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Clinton says she's proud to have his support, to know that someone with decades of experience would trust her to be commander-in-chief. Then there's the Arizona Republic newspaper, which is endorsing Clinton as the only choice to move America ahead, writing, quote, "This is Hillary Clinton's opportunity. She can reach out to those who feel left behind. She can make it clear that America sees them and will address their concerns." That newspaper has been publishing since 1890. This is the first time they're endorsing a Democrat. Meanwhile, Clinton is sounding fired up after Monday night's first debate.
Did anybody see that debate last night? Oh, yes. 1 down, 2 to go.
The Associated Press is reporting Hillary Clinton and her husband will travel to Israel for the funeral of former President Shimon Peres. We expect an update from the Clinton campaign later this morning. Steve, Brian?
All right, Mike Emanuel in a quiet neighborhood in Westchester. Thank you very much. Now let's go over to Five Moms on the Couch.
Yeah, guys, stay over there. You're not welcome here. No boys allowed.
I know.
1 down, 2 more matchups to go. It was a fiery first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. The two rivals clashing over topics like national security and ISIS. Listen.
Well, at least I have a plan to fight ISIS.
No, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do.
No, we're not.
See, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do. No wonder you've been fighting. No wonder you've been fighting ISIS your entire adult life.
So who came out on top? Let's get reaction from our mom panel. We have Beth. She is an attorney and a mother of 3. We have Lisa. She's an attorney and a mom. We have Courtney. She's a communications manager and a mother. Lauren is an author and also a mama. And we have Keisha. She's an attorney and a mom. So a panel of smart women mamas. Love all of you guys. Yeah, boys, stay over there. All women on this couch. This is so cool. We have, on purpose, we have the liberals to the left. We have the Republicans to the right. All of you like Donald Trump. You guys like, or you ladies like Hillary Clinton. What do you think? What resonated in the debate? Why do you like her?
Well, I feel that she was prepared. She was not rude. I feel like Trump talked over her. He did not answer questions. And I feel like she had her responses thought out, and they had policy and facts included, not just out to bash Trump.
Okay, Lauren, what was the biggest issue? What is the biggest issue for you and your family?
Well, I think the economy, and I do think I'm someone who cares a lot about how, especially women at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale are doing. 70% of Americans in poverty are women and children today, and that's largely because so many women are in minimum wage jobs, and so I actually do care a lot about, lifting the minimum wage, lifting women out of poverty, and I certainly care about having a role model in the White House for my daughters, and somebody who bashes women constantly to me does a disservice to my kids, and I don't want that as a role model for her, or frankly for boys either.
Okay, Courtney, what do you like about Donald Trump the most, and what do you like about the debate?
Well, I'd have to say, he came out on top for sure on national security for me. He talks about strengthening borders. I know he's talked about the wall several times, obviously, but he cares about immigration policy, etc. I would have liked to hear more on policy from both of the candidates, but I certainly felt that Trump came out on top.
Okay, now Lisa, being a woman, many people think that Trump's not doing well with females, but you're still voting for him. Why?
Well, and one of the things that was pointed out here, we're talking about women bashing. Well, we're really not talking about that, right? Because we're talking about 2 people who are running for president. And maybe 20 years ago, if you went into politics, there had to be this gender-specific way of addressing a woman. But today, I really think that we are equal, and I think that these discussions that go back and forth and the way that they address each other, these are 2 candidates, and both should be able to take it. And they do have different opinions, and I do I do believe that Trump is much stronger on national security and the economy. I think he wants to go after corporations. Hillary has the age-old Democratic notion that we'll tax people. We'll increase taxes on people, maybe wealthy people, but still people. And all that does is make people close their pockets so that their money stays inside. And that won't help the economy. We have to go back to Reaganomics. But I think we have to look at these two parties as two people, not a man and a woman.
Beth, what do you think about the debate?
Well, I thought actually that both candidates presented strong. I thought they were both strong candidates. The difference for me was Hillary seemed so scripted. She was very rehearsed. She didn't talk like, to me, she didn't talk to us. I don't think she resonated with the Americans, with the American people. We want change. Donald Trump is the candidate for change. Hillary Clinton is the candidate of the establishment. Hillary Clinton has been in government. She's been in government her whole life. You know, Donald Trump even talked about things like federal wasteful spending in the federal government. He ran businesses. That's what he's done his whole life. He's a businessman. He knows how to save money. Hillary Clinton, she spends money on the taxpayer's dime, doesn't think twice about it.
Courtney, a lot of people said that he was not prepared enough. He wasn't as prepared as she was. Do you agree with that? And what does he need to do for the second debate?
I don't totally agree with that. I mean, I think it resonates with Americans that he spoke from the heart. He didn't seem scripted. She was a talking head. It just seemed like she was so rehearsed and so coached. And I think him speaking from the heart really resonates with most Americans.
Well, I think we don't live in a bubble. I mean, look, the United States is not a bubble. You do have to resonate with Americans, but we also have to resonate with our allies around the world. And when you are incapable of keeping a clear and coherent message, when you bash our allies around the world, when you threaten to dismantle NATO, it actually makes us less safe.
Do you think the American people, is that their biggest concern, though?
Well, look, I think there is, there's a reason why we talk about what it means to be presidential. And that's not just about being rehearsed. It's actually knowing what you are talking about and having an ability to show up on the global stage to represent our nation with dignity, with respect for other nations and for our allies, with a mastery of the subject matter and an understanding of the subtleties and the complexities of what our nation deals with. That is actually what is required of a president. It may not be what we want to hear on the campaign trail because we want someone we want to have a beer with, but on the global scale, these are incredibly important issues, and how we are represented matters.
You've all brought up so many great issues today. In fact, we love it so much, we're going to bring you back later in the show to have more conversations about national security and the debate and what we hope to see in the next debate. Thank you, ladies, for being here. We're going to hand it over to another powerful, amazing woman. Abby is doing headlines this morning.
What a great discussion. Thanks so much. We do start with this dash cam video capturing the dramatic moments that a woman is brought back to life. Houston officers are flagged down after a woman crashes her car. She was passed out inside the car with the doors locked. Officers had to break a window to get her out. A nearby flight attendant and the officers took turns performing CPR.
She's still there, and I kept going, guys. Come on, come on, come on.
I relieved her, and I had another deputy relieve me, and we just kept going until fire EMS got there.
The woman started breathing again before being rushed to the hospital. She had a heart attack and is still in the hospital, hoping for the best for her. Well, she is getting naked for Hillary, and she is not the only one.
I briefly scanned the Constitution, and nowhere does it say you can't just roll out of bed and come to the polls in whatever state you woke up in. If you're like me, I sleep naked.
Okay, so Madonna's now joining Katy Perry's clickbait campaign to get people out to vote. The superstar posted this nude picture on Instagram, writing, quote, "Vote for Hillary." The two are the latest outspoken A-listers to back the Democratic nominee. And those are some of your headlines. Ainsley, over to you.
How do you know she's naked in that picture?
Very good question.
She could be wearing a strapless top.
Thank you, Abby.
FBI Director James Comey says that he is proud of the work of the FBI and what they did in investigating Hillary's emails. Judge Andrew Napolitano weighs in on that next. And the hit sitcom, come on in, guys, the hit sitcom Will and Grace, it is back. But is the reunion really just a campaign ad for Hillary Clinton? The not-so-subtle message for the Hollywood. For Hollywood, hey.
My goal in this case was to treat people, as it is in my entire career, fairly without regard to their rank in life. This case was done in that way, and the decision was made in that way. So I think to do otherwise would have been two-tiered. I'm very proud of the work we did. I know it generated a lot of controversy, but I'm very proud of the work we did.
Should James Comey be proud of the work he did on the investigation into Hillary Clinton's private server and the emails and everything else that's coming out even today, including the document dump on Friday, including the revelations that 5 people got a degree of immunity to prosecute. In other words, they would not be prosecuted for anything they said in the investigation of Hillary Clinton. Judge, should he be proud?
No, he should not be proud. That's not me. That's many of the FBI agents who worked in this case who felt that their hands were tied, who firmly believe that the political forces from the West Wing of the White House through the Justice Department to Jim Comey stifled an ordinary investigation. How could he be proud of an investigation that didn't use any of the tools available to the FBI, that didn't present any evidence to a grand jury, they didn't get any subpoenas, they didn't get any search warrants? And this so-called limited immunity that they granted, it wasn't immunity. You can only get immunity from a federal judge in order to get somebody to testify. Okay. Testify where? There was no grand jury and no trial to testify.
But what's most stunning is that Cheryl Mills, Hillary Clinton's lawyer, got the immunity. He said he did it because he wanted to speed the investigation along. She would have lawyered up, and it would have taken forever to get the laptop and the information or whatever she needed to move forward on the Hillary Clinton.
That's because they didn't present anything to a grand jury. If they did, they would have gotten a subpoena from the grand jury. And if the subpoena didn't work, they could have gone to a federal judge and gotten a search warrant. So they're saying to Mrs. Clinton's lawyer, we need your laptop. The lawyer becomes a witness. When the lawyer is a witness, the lawyer has to leave the case because then she has divided loyalty between protecting her client, Hillary Clinton, and protecting herself.
So, Judge, today the Oversight Committee is going to ask James Comey to come back, and they're going to talk about the immunity and other things about the investigation. If Judge Napolitano was on that committee, what would he be asking?
The evidence of guilt was overwhelming. Why didn't you present any of it to a grand jury? Why did you just request information from her and from her underlings rather than use the power of the government to demand it? Why did you overlook obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, providing material assistance to terrorist organizations, lying to Congress, misleading Congress, theft of government property? The litany of her potential crimes is so long, it's almost laughable. They overlooked it.
Let the record show that Judge doesn't have any questions. All right? Only kidding. Judge, that just gets you started. All right, I'll tell you, it's one-stop shopping in terms of this investigation. You've been fantastic on it.
Pleasure.
All right, coming up straight ahead, guess who's back?
Uh-oh.
Who are you voting for?
I don't know, Grace. Maybe I'll stay home on December 1st.
But is the Will and Grace reunion really just a campaign ad for Hillary Clinton? The not-so-subtle message Hollywood will bring you next.
Years after the finale of Will and Grace, the cast is coming back for the first time ever to elect Hillary Clinton.
Yes. Who are you voting for?
I don't know, Grace. Maybe I'll stay home on December 1st.
December 1st. Reunited Will and Grace make no secret of their preference for Hillary Clinton, spending the entire time convincing Jack and Karen, who is pro-Trump, that voting for Trump is just plain wrong. Joins us right now with her reaction, the Daily Caller's Caitlin Collins. Good morning, Caitlin.
Hey, Caitlin.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Well, I watched this last night, and it was very clear that Will and Grace love Hillary, and then the people who like Trump are depicted as just nincompoops.
Right. They say the point of this reunion of Will and Grace is to encourage their fans to get out and vote this November. But after seeing it, you can tell that it's a walking, talking campaign ad for Hillary Clinton. You know, they spend the entire 10 minutes mocking Donald Trump and trying to discredit him and encourage people who are undecided to vote for Hillary Clinton. It's a political message with a punchline.
You know, Caitlin, I'm okay with this because we expect this from Hollywood. I'm glad to see the cast reunited again. I can't wait to watch it. I haven't seen it yet.
I didn't watch it in the first place.
Yeah, you didn't? It's a great show. It's funny. And I love Karen. Karen's got a great personality. But, you know, we expect this from Hollywood. Isn't it just them having some fun with us and bringing back the cast?
Well, they're trying to do that, but they're also trying to discredit Donald Trump, and, you know, it's a very thinly veiled attempt to sway people to vote for Hillary Clinton. And it really shows you what Hollywood thinks of conservatives who support Donald Trump. They're these uneducated, racist people who need to be taught to vote for the right person, and I don't think that's the right message you should be sending to people.
Do you really think it's going to change anyone's vote?
I don't think so. I don't think it swayed any voters because the people who watch Will and Grace and are voting for Hillary Clinton aren't going to change their minds, hopefully, by a TV show.
Sure. Although another TV show, The West Wing's trying to do the same thing for Hillary in Ohio, right?
Yeah, the West Wing also reunited, and they campaigned for Hillary Clinton in Ohio. And it just shows you it's Hollywood using their celebrity status to take on a political cause. You know, Deborah Messing has been a very vocal Hillary Clinton supporter throughout the entire election, and she's campaigning for her in Ohio this week.
How did they look? I can't wait. I mean, it's been 10 years. They look the same?
They look the same.
All right.
Interesting stuff. All right. So if Will and Grace are your political gurus, then vote for Hillary.
They look the same. They have a lot of money. They can afford good doctors.
Yeah. Although
good moisturizer, Brian says.
I think Will, during the passage, said, you know, I used to be able to read this without reading glasses. A little older. All right, Caitlin, thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin. All right, from racist to liar, Hillary Clinton called Donald Trump every name in the book during that first debate. So how can he fight back? Former presidential candidate Herman Cain has a few ideas. He is live next. Good morning to you. It is Wednesday. It's September 28th, 2016. I'm Ainsley Earhart. Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail fresh off this week's debate, and he is firing up the huge crowds like this.
And we're going to get rid of cricket. I mean, we're going to get rid of that crooked woman. She's a crooked woman. She's a very, very dishonest woman.
And breaking this morning, a few major endorsements that nobody saw coming.
And yet another Clinton confidential aide revealed the go-to girl whose job it was to buy BlackBerries off of eBay, use BlackBerries for Hillary Clinton. We're going to tell you who she is coming up.
Who circled her? John Madden? Hey, look who got caught in the carpool lane. His ticket is going to be huge. Look at that. I don't know if that's real or not. Meanwhile, you're watching Fox News Channel, home of the 2016 election.
Brian's doing this new inflection thing.
Right. Oh, it's an old inflection.
Right.
Oh, yeah, because
it's
it
a
dates
flashback
back from before I got on the show.
Right. I just want to keep people awake. And I know if you give people the same tone constantly, even if you give a nugget of brilliance, they won't hear it.
So you're going to be elongating vowels.
Exactly.
For instance, Toba has one from a long time ago. Listen.
He does?
Toba.
Do-do-do. Yeah, good call.
What's that? What was that?
Anyway.
The other day he said, my favorite one was Nancy Pelosi.
Right, because we have not introduced her in a while. She has not been on the show in a while.
Okay, so let's get serious. What's in the news?
Yeah, let's do. We are now 41 days until the presidential election, and now we're just learning that the first debate on Monday night was the most watched in TV history, with 84 million people tuning in. I don't think we know yet the number of people who watched it on the computer and smartphones.
No, they don't. They haven't told us that number yet. Will they be able to tell us that number? I don't know.
They will.
All right, now the Trump campaign is cashing in a huge way.
Yep, but money isn't the only thing they are gaining. That, according to Fox News national correspondent John Roberts, who has to submit his script to us before he goes on the air. So, John, that's how we're able to tease what you're going to say.
You mean it's just not obvious, Brian? Good morning to you, Brian. Ainsley, Steve. Yeah, the Trump campaign touting some new endorsements today. You know how George Bush 41 and Bush 43 and Jeb Bush say they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. Well, guess who is going to vote for Donald Trump? 50 of the alumni from the Bush administration, starting with former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, Ari Fleischer, who was the press secretary, John Ashcroft, who was the Attorney General, Elaine Chao, who did both transportation and labor in the Bush administration, as well as Tommy Thompson, who was the Secretary of Agriculture and former governor of Wisconsin. They all say they are on the Trump train and will be voting for him on November the 8th. On the campaign trail, after relitigating Monday's debate throughout much of yesterday, complaining about everything from the microphone to the moderator to Miss Venezuela, other things under the category that begins with the letter M. He was in Melbourne, Florida last night. A big rally, thousands of people inside, thousands of people who could not get in, who had to listen to everything outside, taking square aim at Hillary Clinton, saying as Secretary of State, she was virtually incompetent. Here's Trump from yesterday.
She bragged about how she traveled all over the world.
And that's true. She traveled all over the world. And you know what it got us? Nothing. Nothing. It got us debt, and it's got us death. We have death and debt and unemployment. We have all bad things.
Donald Trump also yesterday doubled down on his support for the stop and frisk policy that was pursued by the city of New York, saying in a place like Chicago, where he will spend part of today, it really could have a dramatic effect on the violence that has gripped this city. Here's what Trump said about stop and frisk.
Stop and frisk in Chicago, especially where it's going crazy, could save thousands of lives, just like it saved thousands of lives in New York City under Mayor Giuliani. Overwhelmingly, this will save African American and Hispanic lives.
Now, Ainsley mentioned this at the top about fundraising. Here's the payoff for you. The Trump campaign announcing that in the 24 hours since the debate, they have raised, mostly from small donations, $18 million. And Steve, I know how you love talking about the weather.
Yeah.
It's getting cold again here in Chicago, and you know that a presidential campaign is altogether too long when you go through all 4 seasons twice. Which is where we're headed now.
Right. All right. John Roberts reporting live from the windy city of Chicago.
Thank you, John. Which makes it really tough on John. He goes through 4 seasons twice, but he can't stay in 4 seasons because he doesn't have that type of budget.
All right. Meanwhile, let's bring in Herman Cain. He's a Fox News contributor, former presidential candidate, former CEO of Godfather's Pizza. Good morning to you, Herman.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So what do you make of the Democrats are throwing everything they can at Trump? They've labeled him a racist, a sexist, a liar. You got Howard Dean saying he's a cokehead. What's left for him?
Nothing. And my advice to Donald Trump would be ignore her with the name calling, because name calling is a desperate tactic. And I believe that they're continuing to do the name calling of Donald Trump. It's not going to convince people to not vote for Donald Trump. They are trying to generate enthusiasm on the Democrat side. That's what they believe all of the name calling is going to do, but I don't think it's working.
All right, so no name calling, but what should he do?
He should continue to talk about his agenda. He should continue to talk about his proposals, which he has done much more than Hillary has done because he's been out on the campaign trail more. And so if he sticks to his agenda, talking about what he's going to do about the economy, what he's going to do about law enforcement, I support stop and frisk. And Rudy Giuliani did an excellent job on your show yesterday laying out the fact that it is constitutional. But that's the lie that they want to plant, and that is that it's not constitutional, to create confusion. So if Donald Trump sticks to his agenda and his proposals for the economy, for rebuilding the military, energy independence, on down the line, I think that's what he needs to do in order to get it home in November.
Herman, there's so many parallels between your candidacy and the Trump candidacy, his going all the way through, but you laid the groundwork with your business success. When they start going after him on his taxes and on how much he paid, what's the truth when you get to this level of income and this level of success? People will say, well, he doesn't pay any taxes, it's not going to resonate with people. But the truth is, at that level, the goal for every American is to pay as little tax as possible, but do it legally.
Do it legally. And the other thing is, people don't believe that the tax code is fair. So I don't believe he's breaking in the rules regardless of how much tax he is paying. And here's my advice to Donald Trump. I know he threw out a challenge to Hillary that if you release those 33,000 deleted emails, I release my tax returns. Well, I would not release my tax returns if I were Donald Trump, and here's why. It will just give some nitpickers more opportunities to nitpick something to try to turn it into a big story in order to distract from the success that Donald Trump is having.
But it's already been a distraction, Herman.
Yes, because they keep bringing it up.
Right. And look
that's all they have.
And sure, I mean, look at the last presidential race in 2012. You had Mitt Romney. You know, his accountants went through his income and they said, okay, given the fact that you're an investor, you're going to pay 15%. That's the law. And yet they were able to, on the political left, effectively say, look, he's not paying nearly as much taxes as you are.
That's what they are looking for. Anything in Donald Trump's tax returns to turn it into an anti-Trump message. This is why I wouldn't release my tax returns. He filled out a financial disclosure like all of the candidates have to do. I did it. I believe that gives them enough information. They are looking for something to turn into a story. That's why I wouldn't give it to them. Let them continue to complain about it.
Talk about looking for something to turn into a story. How about what Howard Dean did? Let me play what Donald Trump did at the debate, and then we're going to talk about the latest with Howard Dean.
Perhaps we'll be talking about that later. Hundreds of companies are doing this. They're the best ever at it.
So Donald Trump was sniffling, especially at the beginning of the debate. And this is what Howard Dean wrote on Twitter. Notice Trump sniffling all the time. Coke user with a question mark.
Well, that's crazy. Trump was on our show yesterday. He said he didn't have the sniffles. He didn't have allergies. Right. He did not have a cold. And yet Howard Dean, calling him a cokehead right there. Here's something Howard Dean said where he refused to apologize for saying such an outrageous thing.
Here's the deal.
North Carolina and Oklahoma and Arizona and North Dakota and New Mexico. And we're going to California and Texas and New York. And we're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House.
Not exactly the soundbite I was thinking of. He said, do I think at 70 years old he has a cocaine habit? Probably not. It's something I think it'd be interesting to ask him and see if he's ever had a problem with it. I don't think this is a ridiculous idea. Something funny was going on with Trump last night. This is the former head of the DNC calling somebody on the opposite side of the political spectrum somebody who's got a drug problem. That's outrageous.
How can Mr. I Have a Scream criticize somebody with a sniffle? And here's the other thing that's going on. They are so desperate that they throw stuff up on the wall to see what sticks. That's just another thing that they do it all the time. So he threw it out there. He didn't make a declarative statement. He just wants to plant some doubt in people's minds. Right. But here's the thing. It's not going to work. The basket of deplorables that Hillary talked about, they are getting stronger and stronger and stronger every time Hillary names calls or every time some Hillary supporters try to call names. That tactic is not working.
And we're going to find out, Herman, if indeed that is the case, because in a couple of days or maybe as early as tomorrow, we're going to see what the debate did to the numbers, because Donald Trump was surging. Remember that John Kerry erased a 7-point deficit to George Bush. Mitt Romney erased a 4-point deficit to Barack Obama after they won their debates. We'll see what happens now.
Yes.
What do you think needs to happen in the second debate?
The second debate, I believe that Donald Trump needs to, number one, pivot more to his policies and his proposals. In this first debate, some people may not have noticed that the questions to Trump were worded in order to put him on the defensive. Sure. So when you're trying to respond to a question when you're on the defensive, it's more difficult to take advantage of some of those other opportunities. But knowing this, I believe he's going to handle it even much better. Her questions were all softballs. His questions were all to put him on the defensive, and that's a distraction that I believe was an intention on the part of NBC.
All right. Thank you, Herman, for being with us this morning.
My pleasure.
All right, Abby Huntsman has got headline duty for us today, and she joins us with the Fox News Alert.
It's a treat to be with you guys in the morning. We do have some quick headlines to get to this morning. We begin with the Fox News Alert. One of Israel's greatest leaders has died. Former President and Prime Minister Shimon Peres passed away overnight. He suffered a major stroke 2 weeks ago. If you remember, he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1994 for his role negotiating peace accords with the Palestinians a year earlier. Well, President George W. Bush releasing this statement, reading in part, quote, "For the rest of his life, he led it with a deep and abiding concern for his people and a commitment to freedom and peace." The Bush family will miss Shimon Peres and his grace, dignity, and optimism. President Obama, the Clintons, and Pope Francis will attend his funeral on Friday. Shimon Peres was 93 years old. Also breaking overnight, a deadly officer-involved shooting sparking protests near San Diego. A witness capturing the moment, 30-year-old Alfred Alonso got into a shooting stance aimed at officers after pulling something from his pocket. Well, police now say it was not a weapon. You can hear the tense moments in this newly released police sound. Listen.
Still non-compliant, still won't get his hand out of his pocket. Get your hand out of your pocket. C-28 shots fired. Send me an ambulance.
The man's sister called 911 for help, describing her brother as mentally ill. The officers are now on leave. And those are some of your headlines. I'll see you guys soon.
All right. Thank you very much, Abby.
Thanks, Abby.
Coming up on this Wednesday, yet another Clinton confidential aide revealed, the go-to girl who found deals on used BlackBerries for Hillary Clinton.
It's amazing. And Satan after school, where a satanic temple just started a club for elementary school kids. I'm not kidding. Don't blink at me, devil.
When you have your staff taking the Fifth Amendment, taking the Fifth, so they're not prosecuted. When you have the man that set up the illegal server taking the Fifth, I think it's disgraceful.
There you have Donald Trump calling out Hillary Clinton about her staff dodging the law during the FBI's investigation into her private email server in her basement up at her house in Westchester.
All right, now we're learning what the FBI gave up to grant at least 5 of her aides immunity.
Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry has more from Washington, D.C. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, guys. Significant is that contempt of Congress charges will be considered today against Hillary Clinton's former IT specialist. That's going to happen this afternoon before the House Rules Committee. That's important because that means those charges are now just one step away from reaching the House floor just weeks before the election. That's going to come for Brian Pagliano. You remember him. He worked at the State Department and set up Clinton's private server. He has defied 2 congressional subpoenas to testify. Pagliano and former State Department Chief of Staff Cheryl Mills, of course, are 2 of 5 people in Clinton's orbit who were given immunity deals by the FBI. They've become controversial because immunity usually suggests there was some sort of criminal liability, and yet there were no criminal charges actually brought by the FBI. FBI Director James Comey yesterday defended the decision to grant Mills legal immunity by saying it gave him access to a laptop the FBI wanted, but as you heard Judge Napolitano astutely point out last hour, Mills was representing Clinton as a lawyer, then turned over the laptop and became a witness, so she should have left the case, an entanglement Comey was pressed on before Senate committee.
Grand jury subpoena for a lawyer's laptop would likely entangle us in litigation over privilege for a very long time. And so by June of this year, I wanted that laptop. Our investigators wanted that laptop, and the best way to get it was through negotiation.
Do you think any laws were broken by Cheryl Mills?
We have no evidence to establish that she committed a crime.
Do you think that Secretary Clinton broke any laws related to classified data?
We have no evidence sufficient to justify a conclusion that she violated any of the statutes with respect to classified information.
And James Comey will be facing more heat later today as well, testifying before the House Judiciary Committee, guys.
Well, Ed Henry, thank you very much. And a lot of people at the FBI are horrified by Comey's performance and, in fact, think some of them he should quit.
I don't understand why they had to offer Cheryl Mills immunity. Why couldn't they just go into her house and take her computer if it was an investigation?
Well, they need a search warrant and all sorts of things. They wanted her cooperation.
Yeah. All right, coming up straight ahead, a major recall out this morning for a kid food favorite that's probably in your freezer right now. Please don't make it Jell-O.
And most women are conservative. They just don't know it yet. Our next guest has a message that could turn this election upside down. Stay with us.